I wasn't involved in it. We could spend all... I can't answer you because I wasn't involved in it.
The British billionaire Philip Green defends himself in Parliament over the collapse of a major shopping chain, which cost thousands of people their jobs. But how much is he responsible for? We'll also visit Panama City for a story about hypocrisy, outrage, and how shell companies are being used to avoid tax. And the beautiful game, but it's costing fans dearly. I'm Matthew Moore in Istanbul, and this is Money Talks. Hello and welcome to the programme. We begin with a British billionaire on the ropes. Philip Green is a retail king, but today he had to bow to Parliament. MPs questioned him over and over again about his role in the collapse of BHS. Now, that was a major chain of UK stores. Thousands of people lost their jobs and pensions, and at times, the interrogation in London got a little personal.
Sir, do you mind not looking at me like that all the time? It's really disturbing. Sorry? No, you just want to stare at me. It's just uncomfortable.
OK, let's do a little interrogating of our own now with our reporter, Charlotte Dubinsky. Charlotte, he's a powerful man, a rich man. How does a billionaire find himself like this being grilled in Parliament?
Well, it's a tale of alleged deceit and mismanagement, Matt. And that's because Philip Green appeared before MPs to discuss his involvement in the demise of BHS. Now, the company was a staple of the British high street for almost 88 years, but it's now in liquidation. BHS went into administration in April, a year after it was sold, for less than $1.50 by Sir Philip Green. Now, he's the chairman of the retail giant, the Arcadia Group. It has almost 3,000 outlets across the world, including well-known brands like Topshop and Miss Selfridge. And he's been under fire for what he did at BHS. This is because his wife, Tina, got a $577 million dividend. This is Tina, when she was the legal owner of the company as it was being sold. Now, that's despite a huge hole in the company's pension pot, which now has a deficit of more than $800 million. So who's the winner? Well, it's clearly Sir Philip, who still has a personal fortune of $4.9 billion. And the losers? Well, it's a long list. Let's start with the thousands of BHS employees left without a job, but there's also those who are part of the pension scheme at BHS, thousands of small suppliers who have been left out of pocket, and the British taxpayer, which may end up footing a multi-million-dollar redundancy bill.
And Charlotte, it's precisely because of the job losses and the pension problems that they're having now that a lot of people in the British establishment, politicians and his fellow businessmen, are turning on Philip Green. How did he defend himself in Parliament?
Well, he started the session by saying he was sorry, Matt. He was sorry for the demise of BHS, which has been an institution on the high street for almost 90 years. And he apologised to the staff for the fact that the company went into liquidation. But he defended his role as chairman for 15 years, saying that when he was chairman, Arcadia Group, this is the larger group that he runs, they invested $1 billion in BHS. And he said the problem with it, it just structurally wasn't right. It wasn't fit for the high street as it's changing. So that's how he defended himself in that select committee hearing.
Well, I grew up in Britain and I remember that brand really was quite something at one point, but then it went downhill and became quite unfashionable. So what about the pensions? What is Philip Green going to do about all the pensions?
Well, the pensions, that amounts to 20,000 employees at BHS who've all got a stake in that pension. And as I mentioned, that pension deficit is $800 million. Now, MPs questioned Sir Philip, saying that when he took over the chairman of BHS, that pension pot was in surplus of around $60 million. Within a few years, that was down to minus $10 million. And by the end of his tenure, $800 million. And they questioned him repeatedly, Matt, how was that able to happen under his watch? And this is how he replied.
Ma'am, I wasn't involved in it. We could spend all... I can't answer you because I wasn't involved in it. You can ask me as many questions as you like. This was not on my table to deal with. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what he said to the Select Committee, and it is worth saying that he had also said that he would plough $60 million of his own money to try and shore up that pension deficit. But that still leaves $740 million to find. And the pensions regulator in the UK is questioning why that's allowed to happen, and also asking Philip Green to put more of his money to shore up that deficit, pointing to the fact that he paid that dividend to his wife of $577 million. A very, very difficult day in front of the Select Committee. Many times when Philip Green got very agitated, didn't like the questioning. It's over right now, but may not be in the future, because the MPs in Britain do have the ability to recall Philip Green back for questioning if they're not happy.
So we could have a round two then.
We could.
OK, Charlotte Dubinsky, thank you very much for that. Now, coming up in a couple of minutes here on Money Talks.
Roll of toilet paper is a thing of rarity under President Maduro.
And the queues for such basic goods go on and on. So why are some people telling us there is no crisis? But first, let's go around the world in 60 seconds for the top business headlines.
If you thought Uber might be slowed down by legal problems, think again. The ride-hailing app has plans to get even bigger. Just days after it raised $5 billion by selling shares, it's now getting another $2 billion in loans. That will make it the best-funded startup company of all time. The sale of Yahoo has entered its final stages, but it's not clear yet what will happen next. There are 6 different suitors for the huge but troubled tech company. Verizon and AT&T are thought to be the leading bidders, prepared to pay between $4 and $6 billion. And diamonds are a girl's best friend, but global investors are more interested in buying the mines they come from. That's what Russia's government is banking on. The country desperately needs to attract foreign investors, and its government now plans to sell shares in the world's biggest miner of diamonds to lure them in. Alrosa had record profits last year, and it could bring in as much as $860 million if sold to foreign investors.
Now, Turkey's unemployment rate fell to 10.1% in March, a drop of nearly a percentage point from a month earlier. Now, that's good news, as the labour force participation rate rose 0.9 points to just over 51%. And that means that the majority of Turks are either employed or actively looking for work. Well, last week, GDP figures improved as well, painting a slightly rosier picture for Turkey's economy. But not everyone is happy. Investors in particular still have worries about the country's future. Well, to find out exactly what's going on, we're joined now by Philippe Dauber-Pantanacci. He's a senior economist at Standard Chartered Bank. Philippe, thank you very much for joining us on Money Talks. We just wanted to look a little bit about your article, Turkey's Perfect Storm of Risks. We've heard a couple of good indicators over the last couple of weeks. What do you think this suggests about the future of Turkey going forward?
Well, what's for sure is that the unemployment figure was a good surprise, and I would say also that the growth figures in Q1, but also in the last quarter of 2015, were extremely good news, piece of news for Turkey. Now, it's true that we think that this might be the end of the good news for Turkey, and that going forward, there are a lot of indicators that tend to show that the growth figures, but also probably the unemployment, have reached their peak in the current cycle. And the reasons for that are numerous, but the first one is obviously linked to sentiment and the fact that there's a lot of worries amongst the investment communities outside of Turkey. The tourism sector has been absolutely collapsing in the recent data that we have. The hotel occupancy rate have gone down by 70%, and the tourism figure have gone down, had their worst data print in April in 17 years. So obviously, this will negatively contribute to growth in the upcoming month.
OK, Philippe Dauber-Pantanacci, thank you very much there for your analysis. Now, the United States and Venezuela have announced they will launch high-level diplomatic talks as the humanitarian crisis in the South American country deepens. TRT World's Annalise Borges reports now on why one of the world's richest oil nations is failing to feed its people.
Beggars can't usually be choosers, and in Caracas, there's nothing to choose from. endless queues for basic items snake through Venezuela's capital.
We are here begging, practically on our knees, and sometimes they don't sell us anything.
The scene is right out of Old Mother Hubbard. Venezuela's cupboard is bare. The implosion of the country's communist-inspired economy superinflated the local bolivar, drained hard currency reserves, and left importers without the hard cash to purchase goods vital for survival.
What products have you seen in there? You didn't see chicken, flour, rice, oil. You didn't see milk, nor sugar or coffee. Please, all they have in there is soap and detergent. We can't eat that.
A roll of toilet paper is a thing of rarity under President Maduro. His predecessor, Hugo Chavez, tried to put price caps on a long list of essential items, a measure designed to make these products more affordable, but that instead made them even harder to get hold of.
Y hoy en día, simultáneamente,
today, the most important basic items are the ones people can't find. Why? Because there's a law that regulates the resale price of these items and places them much below their real price, which would cover the production costs.
Venezuelans flush with dollars don't have to fret about shortages. They shop on the black market, where items are marked 100 times above the regulated retail cost. But those close to the government insist the Venezuelan economy remains robust.
En Venezuela no hay escasez.
In Venezuela, there are no shortages. What's happening is a distortion of reality. The goods are there, otherwise there would be no one queuing to buy them. And if there was an economic crisis, there would be no cash to buy products with.
The government speaks of abundance. They say there's food in this country, but have a look at this. These enormous queues are because one can't buy anything. There's no flour, no rice, nothing. Mr. Maduro and all his friends are shameless thieves, and they're starving the Venezuelan people.
As Venezuela's shelves and stomachs remain empty, President Maduro's credibility is being tested by the day. Annelies Borges, TRT World, Caracas.
Now, plenty more coming up after the break here on Money Talks, including we continue tracing a route down the Panama Paper Trail. Today, our editor-at-large, Craig Capitas, will be guiding us through the hidden world of offshore finance. Also coming up, find out why Twitter is pumping millions of dollars into sound. And nearly a week into Euro 2016, teams might be tallying their points, but fans are counting the cost. Find out how high that is when we come back. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Matthew Moore in Istanbul. Still ahead on the programme, find out why Twitter is betting big on sound from the cloud. Now, nearly every day since the Panama Papers were leaked in April this year, the world has awoken to new revelations about the leaders who govern them, the celebrities they adore, and the criminals they fear. So we've sent our editor-at-large, Craig Capitas, to do some more digging. First, Craig went to Miami, where he sat down for cookies with a former offshore tax lawyer. He then travelled to Portobello in the north of Panama to explain the origins of tax havens. And in today's third instalment of the Panama Paper Trail, Craig visits Panama City to explain exactly how shell companies work.
The jungle passage from the ancient Spanish treasure store of Portobello to the electronic banks of Panama City is still called Camino Real, the Royal Path. For nearly 200 years, some 60% of the gold and silver looted by the conquistadors traveled down this road before shipment to the royal families of Europe.
5 centuries and 11 million documents later, the quest for hidden treasure has moved to this glass house behind me.
Behind these mirrored windows is the headquarters of Mossack Fonseca, a law firm with 30 offices around the world and the unwilling source of the Panama Papers. Between 2005 and 2015, Mossack Fonseca established more than 200,000 offshore structures for some 360,000 clients. All of them were legitimate entities under Panamanian law. Here's how it works. Let's assume that you're the owner of a British firm that exports teacups to the United States. It costs you 25 cents a piece to manufacture the cup, and you sell it for $1 a cup. So instead of selling the teacups directly from your UK office, paying local taxes on the profit, you sell the cups to your Panamanian corporation for 50 cents a piece. Your Panamanian company then resells them to your American customers for $1 a cup, providing you with a tidy 50-cent per cup profit in a tax-free jurisdiction. The Panama Papers drew back the curtain on the names of those who actually pulled the strings at those companies Mossack Fonseca created for them. An unknown whistleblower leaked the data to the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, who in turn shared it with investigative reporters around the world. The cascade effect was instantaneous and reminiscent of a scene in the film Casablanca.
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Politicians cried foul, and dozens of governments launched their own investigations into Mossack Fonseca, a shell maker that financial watchdogs say is responsible for hatching almost 10% of the world's offshore shell corporations. But the Panamanians aren't talking for now.
Well, Craig is back from Panama and with us in the studio. Craig, I loved your report, original journalism, going through Panama City, but I'm afraid the best bit about it was a little clip from Casablanca. Just remind us, why did you choose that? It's about hypocrisy, right?
It is about hypocrisy, total hypocrisy. Every political leader in the world for centuries has known this has been going on. And for any of them to say they don't know what's going on is pretty disingenuous.
Right. Now let's talk about the teacups example you gave us here. You take the teacups, you pretend that you're selling them from Panama, and then you get to keep more of the profit because it's a tax haven. Look, this may be legitimate and may be going on for decades, but people nowadays think it's an absolute scam.
Change the law.
Right.
Change the law.
Will
you
we
don't
see
like
that?
it? No, I don't think it will change. But this is what it boils down to. People have elected their Democratic representatives for decades. It's like the gun argument. You don't like it? Change the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. You don't like this? You change the law. You make it illegal to do it. But there's so much money involved in offshore shelling that it's really unlikely it's going to be done.
Look, recently we saw Nigeria's president turning up for a big anti-corruption conference in Britain, and he said it's all very well you guys telling us to clean up our act, but what about you guys? So you've got Britain that controls the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Jersey, the Virgin Islands. Even in the United States, you've got money being hidden away in certain states that make concessions. It is a problem globally, really, isn't it?
Oh, it is. This problem is just not exclusive to exotic places like Panama, Costa Rica, or whatever. This is happening in the United States, the UK, and in fact, it was the UK that actually made offshore havens acceptable.
Right, putting their British stamp of approval on it, if you like.
Absolutely. You know that fancy voice you use, Matthew?
Well,
that's
thank
how
you very
it is.
much, Craig. Do come again. Well, Craig, for now, that's all for now. Tomorrow, Craig will be giving us a step-by-step guide to opening your own shell company in his penultimate Panama Paper Trail piece. Well, let's stay with Britain, and in just over a week, the United Kingdom will vote on whether it wants to remain part of the European Union. The result is far from clear. The latest polls have those in favour ahead, and the markets are frightened. Britain's index of leading shares, the FTSE 100, has been up and down all week. Now, shares earlier today were up, but that follows 4 straight sessions of losses. Traders, it seems, are trying to protect their investments in the event of a Brexit, and that's why they seem to be selling British companies. The value of the pound has also been dropping over the last 5 days. The price of the UK currency, also known as sterling, is falling against both the US dollar and the euro. It's also lost out against the Turkish lira, which, as we heard earlier, is itself under pressure. Now, amid all the talk about what Brexit might mean for the markets, economies and companies, though, what are you worried about? In this week's Q&A segment, we let Frances Asquith put her question to the expert.
My name is Frances Asquith. I live in New York. I would like to know if you think the pound is going to be weakest before the Brexit vote or afterwards.
Well, Francis, nobody likes uncertainty, and certainly investors, banks, the world generally hates uncertainty. And if Britain pulls out of the EU, that's a big load of uncertainty, and that will mean that sterling, I think, will take quite a major dive. Of course, it's not completely unexpected, so it might not drop as much as it might have done if this had come completely out of the blue. But I think for, well, probably a year or 2 years, maybe more, sterling will be low. Now, I don't know that exactly. I don't have facts. Nobody has facts. Nobody really knows. But I think that is the likelihood, at least in the short to medium term.
Let's turn to technology now, and Twitter is betting on the future of streaming music. The social network is investing $70 million in SoundCloud. That's an audio streaming platform. Now, last year, Twitter planned to acquire the company for $2 billion, but the deal fell through. So could this investment be Twitter's latest attempt at SoundCloud takeover? Let's step back for a moment and take a look at what SoundCloud actually is. Now, it's an online audio distribution platform. It's used to upload and share audio content like music, sound effects, podcasts, and discussions. Now, tens of thousands of people put up original content on the platform, and there are about 200 million listeners each month. It's valued at around $700 million, and so far, 9 different investors have invested about $230 million in it. Now, let's take a look at some of the big stories in business and finance developing over the next 24 hours. Tomorrow, it's exactly 1 week until that very important European Union referendum in the UK, as we mentioned a moment ago, and we'll be ramping up our coverage of that. Now, for those fascinated by finance, the International Economic Forum kicks off in St. Petersburg in Russia. Heads of state and CEOs are attending that. And in mainland China, this is the fun bit, Walt Disney will officially open its first theme park in Shanghai. We'll have more on that here on Money Talks. Football fans are a passionate and loyal bunch, and about 1.5 million of them are travelling to France to watch the Euro 2016 tournament, which is now well underway. But the costs associated with travelling there mean the beautiful game is pretty expensive to follow, as Semra Hunter explains.
I could say a couple of thousands for all the three games.
It's well in the thousands. We maybe $30,000 all up.
It's probably like 2,000 to 3,000 euros.
Yes, everything has a price. But for some, following their national football team across France is priceless. Here in Euro 2016, Albania qualified for their first ever major tournament, and fans have flown in from far and wide to cheer the boys in red.
You can see the energy here. There's, like I said, you know, the city apparently has 35,000 people. I'm sure there are that many Albanians here today. So, I mean, it's really exciting. It's our first time at a major tournament, so we're really happy to be here.
But what if you found yourself still in Albania's capital, Tirana, and fancied a last-minute trip to Marseille to watch Albania play their second group stage match against France? Well, on the day, a direct flight to get you there in time for kickoff will set you back around $600. We managed to find a 2-night stay in Marseille for a bargain $260, and on the official page, a low-end ticket will only set you back around $80. Throw in some spending money, and you're looking at around $1,000 all in, which is more than twice the average monthly income in Albania. Here in France, it seems many Albanians will have been priced out, a big portion of the team's support coming from expat Albanians around the world, many of whom had to crack open the piggy bank to make the trip.
I talked to people here who said they've spent their whole life savings just to get here, and you know, obviously means a lot. And there's people from all over the place. I heard there's people from Australia, from Alaska, all over the world come to support.
Between a group of us, probably maybe $30,000 all up, combined. 8 people in the group. We don't really want to disclose the exact amounts of money, but it's well in the thousands.
I could say a couple of thousands for all the three games, group stages games. So I mean, well, we don't care. I mean, we are there just, you know, just to be proud.
You can't put an amount of money on this. I mean, the pride that people have here and the joy of being able to support your home country, it's there's no price you can put on that.
For just one football match, and as you can see, it's very much worth it.
Well, that's passion and excitement for you. Football fans spending their life savings in some cases, and Semra Hunter there caught up in all the action. Well, that is it from us for now. Stay with TRT World. We'll have all the news after this short break. Thanks for watching Money Talks.